Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 7 o'clock, and it's time to call to order this meeting of the Planning and Development Council of the town of Oakville. Welcome to everybody. It's great to see such a big turnout. Madam Clerk, do we have any regrets this evening?
Yes, we have regrets from Councillor Khan.
Thank you. Perhaps Councillor Knoll will join us in progress then. Council, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? No? Would two of you like to provide a motion and a second to resolve in the committee of the whole? Councillor Johnston, Councillor Robinson, all in favor? Thank you, that carries. We have no consent items, and our first item is a public hearing item. So just to assist everybody, I'll remind everyone that if a person or public body doesn't make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submission to the town of Oakville in respect of a proposed official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and/or plan of subdivision or condominium, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of town council to the Ontario Municipal Board and may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the board unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So with that, let's turn our attention to our planner, Paul Demchuk.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Burton, members of council. The town has received an application for a draft plan of subdivision known as the Winston Park West Employment Lands. The purpose of this report is to introduce the planning application in conjunction with the statutory public meeting. Council will hear public delegations on the application, ask questions of clarification, and identify any planning issues. The report is to be received and no decisions are to be made at this time. The subject lands are located at 2087 Upper Middle Road East, north of Upper Middle Road and east of 9th Line. Further to the east of the site is Highway 403. The application consists of 3 separate property owners, being Infrastructure Ontario, Rick Tomolka, and Sheridan Lane Holdings. The image up on your screen that you see right now is the draft plan that has been submitted to the town. On the plan, starting at Upper Middle Road at the bottom, actually, you see one north and south road that extends along through the subdivision, the proposed subdivision, and then east and west is Street B that eventually connects to 9th Line. We've got another map that I've attached which better depicts the land use of the property. Just to clarify, the application does not consist of any official plan or zoning bylaw amendments. So the applicant is using the existing zoning. So what you see in the purple are future potential employment blocks. In the red or the pink, if you will, are commercial/employment blocks. The light blue is a stormwater management pond. The green blocks are either wetland or woodlots. And then on the, I guess the right of the screen, you see the Parkway Belt Westlands in the orange. And a very light green is future lands to be dedicated to the Highway 403 road widening. In terms of some issues that staff raised, well, I guess the public raised, as well as staff note, initially from a December 1st, 2011 public meeting, include timing of regional servicing. The region has planned to extend trunk sewer servicing along 9th Line, running north and south, and that is expected to commence later this year. The other issue includes access off of Upper Middle Road in terms of that proposed access to the site. That portion of the road is under jurisdiction of MTO, and we have not received comments yet from MTO, so we're not sure what's going to happen with that, whether it will be a full turning movement intersection or whether it will be right in, right out access. Other concerns include additional potential access points onto 9th Line, in addition to what you see from Street B at the north end of the site. Again, just in terms of some more background information, the lands are designated. There's 4 different designations on the property. The majority of the lands in light blue are business employment lands. Again, that correlates with what was being shown in the draft plan. At the bottom of the subject lands are a darker blue, which is business commercial lands. And then you see a few kind of greenish shades. Those are natural areas. And then at the north right of the site, or of the screen on the subject lands, is the parkway belt. And again, with the zoning, you can kind of see it shaded here, which properties are depicted, but it's the C3A at the bottom is a commercial zoning. The E1 is employment zoning, and then at the top right of the screen is the O5 open space zoning. So in terms of moving forward, staff will wait for the final comments to come in from all the agencies as well as the public and complete our analysis of the application. And going forward, we'll provide a recommendation report to a future Planning and Development Council meeting. So for this report, staff recommend the comments from the public with respect to the draft plan of subdivision application be received. And that is my report. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for the report. Council, do you have questions? Councillor Adams.
It's not so much of a question, but it is an issue that wasn't specifically noted, and it's the impact on the future development possible on the 9th Lines corridor. And it was something that we talked about at the public information meeting, and I didn't see it noted in the report specifically. The other was that there was an email from a constituent that was a follow-up to the letter that's distributed here regarding item 1, and I wasn't sure whether that was in your files or not. And perhaps I suspect there may be a member of the public who wishes to speak tonight, and if so, while that's happening, I'll see if I can pull it up to get the name for you.
Any others? Thank you. Madam Clerk, I understand we have a registered delegation on this file.
Yes, we have a Mr. Rob Russell here, representing Premier Operating Corporation, number 5 Drive-In. Welcome,
Mr. Russell. Council looks forward to your information.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of Council. My name is Rob Russell. With Cernus Associates, we represent the 5 Drive-In, operating as Premier Operating Corporation. In general, we're not opposed to the application. We just want to make sure that the 5 Drive-In's interests are protected as its temporary current use, which we know there's a limited life expectancy on, and also for the potential development potential when the time comes. We reviewed some of the background studies, and there wasn't a lot of information regarding the external impacts. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to meet the applicants, and we will be speaking with them in the future to work on these problems.
Thank you for the information. Before you go, let me see if Councillor Adams or any other councillor has a question for you. Seeing none, thanks very much for coming.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other members of the public with information for council on this file? Mr. Lansdown, would you like to come share your information on this matter?
Good evening, Your Worship, members of Council, and a very happy New Year to all of you. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the. Excuse me, on behalf of the Association of Oakville Harbour Stakeholders, and as Council is well aware at this point, I think our interest in these developments is the erosion and sediment control guidelines on these different sites. And there are 2 questions that we have in regard to this particular development. The first one, is it possible, Your Worship, to get this device working on the desk here so that I can project?
Certainly. We'll have technical help momentarily.
You're kind. Thank you, sir. While we're waiting for that...
It's ready.
Pardon?
It's ready. Go ahead.
Thank you. This is an analysis of the boreholes that were carried out up at the hospital site in North Oakville, and it tells us what the overburden consists of. And I don't know if you can read. No, you can't read. This little square here tells you that there is 46% silt, 29% clay, and 21% sand. And the particle size of all those components, that overburden, is to the right on this side of the blue line. So the only, the difficulty that we have with what we notice with the design of the stormwater management pond for this particular site is that the particle size for which it is sized is 0.15 millimeters. And 0.15 millimeters is approximately that blue line on this chart. So what that suggests is that the material to the right of the blue line, which consists of about 80% of the overburden, will not settle out in the stormwater management pond. So the question that we'd like to leave with council to put to development engineering is, given the design specifications for the stormwater management pond for this particular site, what percentage of the overburden do they believe is going to settle out in this pond? We phrase that as a question because we don't pretend to be obviously experts in hydraulic engineering, but there seems to be quite a big discrepancy between the particle size for which this pond is sized and the particle size of the overburden that we find in Oakville. So that's question number one, Your Worship. And the second question has to do with the storm drains, which you will find along the bottom edge, the south edge of this particular site. This site has quite a pronounced gradient from north to south, and along Upper Middle Road, there are a number of storm drains already installed there. And what we have found with the work that's been done in Oakville recently, and a good example that my ward councillors will be well familiar with, is the work that's been done on Spears Road West and the work that has been done on Rebecca. There was the protection that we tried, that town staff tried to use, was sticking a piece of filtration fabric underneath the storm drain grating. Now the storm drain grating, difficult, is only supported on 3 sides. It's not supported on the 4th side. So if you put a piece of filter fabric underneath the storm drain grating, the water continues to pour and the sediment continues to pour into the storm drain. So our second question, Your Worship, through you to our development engineering staff is, can we please obtain some devices which will effectively protect the inlet of our storm drains when we undertake this development? So those are my 2 submissions, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you very much for bringing your information. Any questions? Thank you, sir. Any others? Going once, going twice? Sir? Welcome. Please introduce yourself. Council will look forward to your information.
Yes, my name is Martin Mudrick. I live at 2052 Upper Middle Road, which is approximately across from the applicant's places there. I submitted my comments via email to Tom Adams, to Paul, and I'm sorry, Paul, I don't remember your last name. And I just want to reiterate my concerns about the signalization of the roadway at Upper Middle Road. There was proposal to have a right-in, right-out at that point along Upper Middle Road, which I do object to, because people will just circumvent that right-in, right-out. We see U-turns, rights on the turning lane at Upper Middle Road and the 403, although it's well posted there that they're not supposed to turn on the red light. So we definitely have concerns about that. And I also have concerns about their single roadway that goes up through the applicant's property. original plans from previous official plans had a road design similar to that of Winston Park East, which would service all the properties along there properly, make maximum use of the land in that area. The design that is proposed or has been shown at this time, the single lane, doesn't look to make maximum use of the land, only those of the applicant, and doesn't take into account the other properties along 9th Line. So those are my main concerns. I don't have objections to their separating the land or subdividing the land. I don't have objections to that.
Are there questions for the delegate? Thank you, sir, for bringing your information. Staff will certainly be considering all those issues that you've raised.
Right, thank you.
All right, I will look to the ward. Councillor Adams.
Just wanted to follow up on my previous comment. I just wanted to highlight to our staff the email sent on January 10th from Nada Skokal. Wanted to make sure that staff had that email and recognized that the same issues with respect to signalization had been brought up in that email as well. So there's a number of individuals who have raised that particular concern, so that they're on file as well. Okay. The only other question I had for you was with respect to the servicing, the internal servicing. It really gets back to the 9th Line issue as well, as to whether the servicing that would be internal to the site would be accessible to the landowners on the 9th Line side as well. So that's an issue, and I don't really need to respond, but I think those are the access to the site on the 9th Line side, as well as the servicing issue are combined issues there. If there are no other members from the public, then I'd move the staff recommendation to receive the comments.
Discussion? All in favor? Carried. All right. That brings us to item 2. And this is a public meeting report on the proposed zoning amendment application and draft plan of subdivision for the Canada Lands Corporation at Dorval and Rebecca, what popularly got to be known as the D&D lands. And we turn our attention to Mr. McConnell, who is our manager of current planning. We will have an update.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council, ladies and gentlemen. The purpose of the statutory public meeting this evening is to introduce the zoning amendment application and the proposed plan of subdivision to council. This meeting will provide the opportunity for the public to provide you with their comments, both positive and negative, pertaining to these applications. You are encouraged to ask questions of clarification and to identify any planning issues that you may wish staff to address in its subsequent recommendation report. As noted in our report, there will be no decisions being sought this evening other than to receive the report itself. So with respect to the specific applications, Mr. Chairman, the purpose of the public meeting is to consider 2 applications, one being the zoning amendment application, and its intention is to rezone those lands from the residential RO3 zone to the similar zone, the residential RO3, as well as the RO6, RO7, and a public open space zone for the purpose of allowing 66 single detached dwellings, 59 townhouse units, and a 0.4 hectare park. From the plan of subdivision perspective, Mr. Chairman, it's also to implement the zoning to accommodate those uses that I had mentioned and to accommodate for the layout of the lands for those purposes, and as well to accommodate the public road that would provide access to those parcels of development. So the subject lands are situated on the northwest corner of Rebecca and Dorval Drive, and the parcel itself is approximately 6.7 hectares in size. So from the perspective of the current official plan, being the livable Oakville plan, the lands themselves are designated in yellow, as you can see, as the low-density residential land use category. There is an overlay, Mr. Chairman, referred to as a special policy area, and so there is a special policy provision within the official plan that certainly speaks to the low-density nature of the parcel of land, but also gives recognition to the introduction of a medium density type of land use in the form of multiple attached dwelling units being permitted within a portion of the lands fronting onto Dorval. So just by way of background, Mr. Chairman, with respect to that policy statement, there had been a tremendous amount of work that had gone into the formulation of the planning policies affecting the site and the creation of the development plan itself being considered this evening. So firstly, there was extensive public engagement with the community leading up to the adoption of the Livable Oakville Plan, which engaged the public through the residential intensification study, the identification of the CLC lands as a special policy area, and the formulation of planning policies for the lands and direct input from the community on those finalized policies, which were ultimately approved by the Ontario Municipal Board. Following this, Mr. Chairman, a visioning workshop for the lands was conducted by town staff with the public and with the involvement of the proponent in accordance with the Livable Oakville policies, which further defined the design direction for the redevelopment of the lands. In addition to this, the Canada Lands Corporation themselves had undertaken their own extensive public consultation with the community in cooperation with the town to further balance its objectives against the town's policies and the community interests. So the redevelopment plan that has been submitted this evening, Mr. Chairman, was further refined through the pre-consultation process, which is a mandatory process within our department, wherein based on the technical review and the evaluation by staff, the proposal itself was further and once again modified subsequent to its ultimate submission to the town. So it has undergone extensive background and consultation and input dating back to the pre-official plan and based on extensive consultation with the public. So there is a lot of history that has evolved to the point where we are today in our review of the proposal from a policy perspective. So, Mr. Chairman, working from the framework that we do have now, from the zoning perspective, as I mentioned, here's the overall existing zoning map, which does identify the property as a residential RO3. And then this is the draft schedule as submitted by the proponent themselves, identifying the various blocks within the plan of subdivision and the zoning categories in which they are requesting, and this is the zoning application that we will evaluate as we move forward. And it will be further clarified in the concept plan that I will show you in just a moment. The plan of subdivision, again, is the planning tool which would ultimately create the individual parcels of land. So, Mr. Chairman, you can see along the westerly and the northerly edge of the property containing the single detached dwellings, as you would in this location along the cursor. Single detached dwellings in this area. There is a 0.4 hectare park which is proposed to be allocated within the site, and then 2 parcels of land for street townhouses in this location, and the larger parcel wrapping around the corner at Dorval and Rebecca. So from an overall conceptual layout, Mr. Chairman, this is the concept plan itself, again, as submitted by CLC, which does show conceptually the built form units being superimposed on top of the parcels to be created. Again, the single detached dwellings and the street townhouses, which would front directly onto Dorval and would be accessed by rear condominium lanes with rear garage access points through here, and would also accommodate for the appropriate amount of visitor parking spaces. So, Mr. Chairman, through the extensive consultation that has taken place, in particular a public information meeting that took place in November of last year, which was very well attended by the residents in the area. A number of issues were highlighted and identified Within our staff report, Mr. Chairman, we have identified a number of issues, and we've categorized these as best as we can for sake of brevity. But we certainly contain and possess the full list. But they generally range from the matters of, from a high level, compatibility and conformity to the Livable Oakville plan with respect to such issues as neighborhood compatibility, appropriate density, the subdivision and the park design. And then this just contains the list here. Connectivity to the surrounding area, tree preservation, residential building type and function, also what would be the appropriate zoning that lands would be rezoned to, issues such as traffic and the impact that it has on the surrounding road network and its integration with the surrounding road pattern, the adequacy of municipal services that would be brought to the site and whether or not the capacity does exist, and then some functional and design and operational types of issues such as snow storage and the adequacy of on-site parking and the noise and how school buses would access this site. So, Mr. Chairman, a very fulsome list of issues that had been identified that we will continue to evaluate and will address in the final recommendation report that we do bring forward to Council for consideration. So that is, in essence, the public meeting this evening, Mr. Chairman. The recommendation is that the report be received, and staff will come back with a final recommendation report in the future.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell. Council, do you have questions for Councillor Delegate?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm anxious to hear from the residents in regards to this, specifically SCORA, who's going to be doing a presentation. But the one thing that was not commented on through the course of your presentation was the fact that Canada Lands has incorporated 2 lots to the north end of the property that I understand one is owned with the property and the other is owned by the town, correct? In the corner there?
That's correct.
Okay. Nothing has been decided as yet in regards to this land. It's still in town ownership, correct?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman, you're absolutely correct. The town still does own those lands. I understand they have made overtures to the town's real estate department to initiate that process for the purchase and acquisition of those lands. No decision has been made on that as of yet.
Ultimately, the decision would come back to council for the disbursement of those properties, and if we wanted to maybe make it a public process whereby it's declared surplus, then I guess people can bid on it accordingly. Is that correct?
There is a defined protocol for the disposition of land, which would have to be adhered to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dudek. Any others? All right, then, Madam Clerk, why don't we start through the list of delegations?
The first delegation is...
Excuse me? What?
Your Worship, I didn't know if the applicant wanted to present.
That's the first on our list. Would be the Canada Lands Company, Mr. Norm Jarus.
It's good to know we have backup in the clerk's department here.
And Eric Turcott.
Welcome, gentlemen. Council, as you can tell, is eager to hear from you.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. Thank you for giving me the opportunity tonight to appear before you today. My name is Norm Jarus. I am the General Manager of Real Estate for Ontario and Atlantic with Canada Lands Company. Canada Lands Company is the owner of the lands at Rebecca Street and Develle Drive, which are subject of the applications for zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision. I'd like to take the opportunity to provide the members of Council and the public in attendance with a background on our applications. I'm joined tonight by Eric Turcott, Senior Associate with Urban Strategies, who will brief you on the plan itself. First, I would like to reiterate CLC's goal to build a sustainable, high-quality development that meets the town's objectives for the Rebecca Street site. Our many redevelopment projects across the country demonstrate our commitment to building neighborhoods that have a long-lasting benefit to the larger community. To meet the town's objectives, we have been very careful to ensure our plan is consistent with livable Oakville. Our site is currently designated as a low-density residential with special policy provisions which present townhouses on a portion of the site adjacent to Dorval Drive. It is important to COC that our proposed development be compatible with the surrounding community in terms of density and housing types, that it include a public park and a good pedestrian connections, and also be very green, both in terms of tree planting and a model of sustainable development. To support the green initiative, Canada Lands Company is proposing to seek certification of the development under the LEED ND program. This initiative supports the sustainable objectives found in the Livable Oakville Plan and is an important corporate objective for CLC. Incorporating community input into our plans is important to us. Prior to and following the submission of our applications, we have engaged and will continue to engage in discussions with the local community, adjacent landowners, stakeholders, SCORA, as well as town staff and local councillors. From the time we've acquired the Rebecca Street site in June 2010 to the submission of the applications in September 2011, COC has participated in 4 community meetings and reached out on an individual or a group basis on numerous other occasions. We have strived to incorporate many ideas from these meetings into the project design. Throughout the process, we have received tremendous feedback from the community, town staff, and local councillors. We have heard regarding elements that people like about our proposal, as well as some things that they would like to see changed or improved. In response to our initial development concept, we've heard from the community that they felt there were too many townhomes. The density was too high. Public rear lanes were not appropriate, the park was not big enough, and preserving the green edge along Dorval Drive was important. COCs listened to these comments, and prior to making the applications, we revised the proposed development to reduce the number of townhomes, increase the number of single-family homes, eliminate the public rear lanes for the townhouses, increase the park size, and enhance the landscaping along Dorval Drive. We believe these revisions addressed many of the substantive comments received during the consultation process. I'll now turn over to Eric Turcotte.
Thank you, Norm. Mr. Mayor, Member of Council, it's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Eric Turcotte. I'm a Senior Associate, an architect and a planner with Urban Strategies. And we've been working on the plan with CLC and the town and the community for over the last year and a half. I'd like to begin by talking to you about the fundamental principle that guided the development of our site, which are based on community comments on livable Oakville objective, as well as basic urban design principle. First, we see that the main entry of the site would be along Dorval Drive, and having other access in egress, secondary access egress off Rebecca Street, and other access onto Dorval Road to actually provide good porosity and good access to the site and improve connectivity to vehicle for pedestrian as well as to cyclists. Giving the adjacency to the adjacent community, adjacent neighborhood, the houses to the west and to the north, we see that larger houses on wider lot would be very appropriate on those locations. As a complement to the townhouse that already exists to the east of Dorval, as well as the Widham Place apartment building to the southeast, we see that the area, the corner of the southeastern corner of the site would be actually quite appropriate for townhouses that would front onto Rebecca and Dorval as well. As well, we see an opportunity here for creating a really nice central community accessible open space in the center of the site. An open space that will be accessible to all, that actually can also be an amenity as well as a focus place for the actual development. As well, we believe in preserving some of the natural feature, and we've been working very hard at the plan to actually preserve some of the mature trees, some of the, especially along the edges edges of the development. As Norm mentioned, the plan is being developed based on a solid, sustainable principle, something we really believe in, and we've registered it as a lead ND project, which does meet not only CLC's objective, but as well as the town principle, and we believe would set a very strong precedent for Oakville. LEED certification means that it's walkable. It's a walkable community. It has access to open space. It has a connected streets network that is usable by the community, by cyclists, by pedestrian. It has tree-lined streets, and it also has high-quality home construction and incorporates sustainable features such as water and energy reduction. The Central Park, there will be a central 1-acre central park accessible to the public in the center of the community. It will be a key feature for the neighborhood. It actually is larger than what is actually required to us. The park will be surrounded by street. It will be highly visible, accessible, and will actually have home facing onto it. So it actually provides, a safe eye on the street and high on the park. So it's just a safe place. It will be an inviting space. It will be landscaped to provide comfortable and beautiful environment for the community. Existing mature tree will be preserved in the park. We'll actually also plant a lot more. And we will continue to work with the town here to actually, create a wonderful park design. And you could see from the image in front of you that we anticipate that we'll have sitting, it will have grass area and formal play area, and it'll also be, possibly a kids playground that could be incorporated into it. The new Rebecca Street development will incorporate also architecturally diverse home of various type, style, and size, really to reflect what is around it. We want a community that actually embrace the context that's around us, and will complement the overall character of the area. The home will display design excellent and incorporate, as I mentioned earlier, sustainable practice. The house width will vary between, this detached house will vary between 40 feet and 50 feet wide, and will have a mix of front and rear garage, really to ensure an attractive streetscape. There will be a range of landscape setback that are being proposed that will actually be implemented to actually try to keep as many trees as we can on the streets. As well, the houses that are located on corner lots, which are really special moment, will actually have special articulation on the facades that actually face onto the public streets. We spend a lot of time, and we've heard a lot from the community about the importance of the Dorval frontage, and we want to make sure that we create an inviting pedestrian environment. So we will have the southern portion of Dorval will be addressed by street-facing townhouse with distinctive active streetscape. Parking will be at the rear, as mentioned by Norm, accessed by a private driveway. There'll be generous landscape front yard that will be maintained by the condominium board as well. CLC is proposing to enhance the landscape along Dorval Road by planting red columnar oak and actually adding a sidewalk parallel to the existing multi-use path to actually avoid and reduce conflicts. It will actually, as you can see here, an intent is to create a green and beautiful edge for the development. And finally, CLC would implement a series of high-quality architectural control here to ensure that will be enforced to ensure that the selected builder will actually create this type of community that you see in front of you here.
Thank you very much for the information, and what a marvel of timing you did. Mr. Jarus, just please stand by in case there's questions. Councillor Duddick.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. First of all, thank you very much for, although there may be differing opinions throughout the process, the considerable amount of consultation that you went through in regards to with the public. Very, very appreciated, and I thought it was a very constructive process. As I say, we may have differing opinions sometimes, but that's natural. One of the things that I guess we've heard more than anything else, other than maybe the built form, is the traffic issues. I have a bit of a problem, actually I have a large problem, in the study that was completed in regards to what was deemed acceptable. What is deemed acceptable in terms of the traffic in this immediate area? I'm thinking specifically the Rebecca Dorval, but also the neighboring streets like Weybourne and that, going in and out of a road or street. What is deemed time-wise?
Well, I'm not a traffic engineer, so I can't answer kind of specific time-wise, but they do have the traffic engineers have levels of standards that they apply that looks at traffic counts on the adjacent roads. They look at basically traffic movements through intersections and how long it takes for certain vehicles to move through, and they apply levels of service to them. What I do recall from the traffic study was that they concluded that there was no adverse impact to any of the intersections or the adjoining lands or roads from this subdivision.
I guess one of the reasons for the question is the people who are trying to get out of Weybourne, which is the street directly west of the property, have considerable problems getting out, not only at peak hours, but other times as well. And so I'm interested as to what, again, drilling down was deemed acceptable. Maybe that's something you can maybe provide, given that you're not a traffic engineer. I know that Councillor Demoff and I are going to be meeting with our traffic department in regards to sort of fleshing out some of the concerns and doing a sort of an assessment of some of the concerns we've heard from the residents. But if you can maybe get that in the interim, that would be appreciated. So, the other thing is,
Councillor?
Yep.
To be of assistance, really the purpose of the meeting is to identify for staff the issues that need to be vetted in their consideration of the application.
Traffic.
And so it might be, you're entitled to ask staff to pay attention to that and to report on it and to consider it in their evaluation. And that would motivate the applicant to provide information to staff. And rather than having them get back to you, you might like that better.
I think I might. Thank you. The other question relates to the Leeds ND. I know that we had concerns regarding how close the setbacks of some of the homes were sort of in the interior portion there. And it was referred to time and again that that is part of the Leeds ND criteria for those setbacks. Can you explain what the rationale is for that?
One of the main principle out of Lead ND is actually create walkable street, and they want to make sure that the environment on the street are actually well framed, well enclosed. It actually have nice landscape, and in a way they want to actually not prioritize space for cars and then more like space for landscape. So in those streets so there are a criteria, for example, that they want to make sure that the wall of the building enclosure to the width of the street is a certain ratio, in that case 1:3 ratio. That means that things has to be a little bit closer together. In this case, the way we've actually alleviated some of the issue related to that was actually to move the garages into those interior block to actually the rear. So actually the house a little bit closer together. There's actually plenty of room for planting trees for landscaping and creating good setbacks. And also it shrinks the place for the driveway for where the car goes. So actually there's less conflict with pedestrians. So that's one of the elements that Lead ND promotes, and that's why we actually in this case have played a lot to actually meet those criteria that Lead require us to meet.
Appreciate that. I know that SCORA, the Local Residents Association, is going to be presenting shortly, and that they had an opportunity to share their concerns with you and actually provide you with a proposal that they were suggesting going forth. Have you had an opportunity to review that, or is that something in future dialogue you would be discussing with them, given that they're just going to present tonight?
Well, we did see their proposal right before Christmas. We've had a kind of a review of it internally. Our approach would be to, in anticipation of further presentations tonight, to work more with them in the application going further.
Super.
Face to face.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions, Council? Thank you. Well, thank you very much for your information. We'll turn now to the next delegation.
The next delegation is Mr. Stephan Bobesich, representing SCORA. President.
Welcome, Mr. Bobesich. Council looks forward to your information. Council, Stephan is the new president of SCORA.
Hello, again, my name is Stephan Bobesich, and I'm the president of SCORA. For those of you who don't know what SCORA is, it's the South Central Oakville Residents Association. I'd like to thank town staff, council, and of course your worship for allowing me to speak this evening. So just to give kind of council a background on what SCORA has been involved with, we've been very heavily involved with these lands prior to CLC even taking ownership. And of course, we've been attending all the visioning sessions and very heavily involved with this process since day one. Also, SCORA has done many projects in the community, such as the St. Thomas Aquinas Field Lights, the Van Dyke and Matas developments, 394 Lakeshore, Hush Homes, and of course, the new official plan. SCORA appreciates the collaborative process and thanks you for the opportunity again to speak on behalf of SCORA and the residents, and we really appreciate the town and CLC's efforts in receiving and being open to community input. Now, SCORA will be presenting an alternative plan to CLC's. We have presented this plan, as mentioned, to the CLC on December 21st last year, and we are in ongoing discussions regarding this plan and do appreciate the continual open dialogue that will continue. We appreciate all the work CLC has put into this project by considering some of the community's feedback and working within the parameters of the new OP. However, we understand the need for increased density over the existing footprints as mandated by the province of Ontario. However, a strong number of community members and SCORA members would prefer to see the density concentrated on the hard edges of Dorval and Rebecca rather than dispersed throughout the entire property. Now, in terms of a plan, please note this is more of just a starting point than a concrete solution. Basically, it's the first step of many. We're very flexible, but believe our plan is more in line with the parameters of livable Oakville than the CLC's development application. Now, our primary objectives for creating this concept are, number one, to maintain the like-to-like lot sizes, which protects and enhances the character of the existing residential areas of Mary Street and Weybourne Drive. We want to maximize the overall amount of green space and parkland on the property. And number three, we want to focus the increased density on the hard edges of Dorval and Rebecca with a condo-style building which offers one-level living versus the traditional townhouse format. Now I'm going to elaborate on these three main objectives. On the west and north sides of the project, SCORA and the community would like to see wider lot sizes than the CLC is currently proposing. SCORA feels this better maintains the character of the existing homes on Mary Street and Weybourne Drive. SCORA and the community would like to suggest 60-foot wide lots backing onto the existing homes of Mary Street and a mixture of between 50 and 60-foot wide lots backing onto the Weybourne Drive homes. If CLC wishes to maintain narrow lots on the properties backing onto the St. James property, SCORA and the community do not object to narrow lots on this portion as there are no existing homes. Number two, green space is good. Green space is very beneficial to everyone, and SCORA's mandate is to help keep the quiet, treed, green community we all love. Number three, as a result of SCORA's efforts to keep the quiet, treed community we love, we are proposing a boutique-style condominium that will mirror the southeast corner of Rebecca and Dorval. While the community and SCORA would love to see only 80 units on this property like it has been for the previous 50 years, we are realistic and supportive of the province's intensification requirements for this area. And our proposal is slightly higher in overall density than the CLC's proposed plan that equates to about 27 units per hectare. Theirs is 26.5. Some of the benefits SCORA sees by going with a condominium instead of a townhouse format are as follows. We maintain a high level of trees, green, and park space for the community while protecting and enhancing the character of existing residential areas. We create a better concept for the Western Gateway to the downtown by having compatible structures and styles by creating a wow factor at the intersection of Rebecca and Dorval. we think we would have a viable product for SCORA and community members looking to downsize and live on one floor while staying in the mature tree neighborhood they revere. This would also encourage an appropriate mix of housing types, densities, design, and tenure throughout the town. Number 5, we wish to promote housing initiatives to facilitate revitalization, compact urban form, and increased variety of housing alternative. And number 6, we would reduce the amount of surface parking by providing underground guest and tenant parking below the grounds of the condominium, and there would be no condo roads. Now, SCORA does realize that this concept would require an amendment to the official plan. However, I am confident that if SCORA and the community can continue our collaboration with CLC and town staff, we can bring the community's vision to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you for the information. Any questions, councillors?
Thank you.
They didn't have questions, but they gave you a well done.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Madam Clerk, would you call the next delegation?
The next delegation is Mr. Brian Emo.
Welcome, Mr. Emo. Council looks forward to your information.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. It's a long time since I've been before you, and I hope that you find Stephan's outline of interest.
I wonder if we could move your microphone toward you.
Maybe I could move.
Or you toward it.
I could move towards it.
Thank you.
Charlie McConnell outlined the extensive public consultation that we've been through the last several years, and so did the CLC people. SCORA has attended and been part of all of those. From our perspective, they provided us with a lot of information, and we provided them with a lot of information and suggestions, but I don't think they adapted as well as CLC people would like to think they did to our suggestions. So endlessly scratching our heads about how we could try to improve the project. We realized that it was the townhouses that were bothering us, and we struck on the idea, well, why don't we replace the townhouses with a condo, and thereby getting it all down in the southeast corner of the property and providing more green space and perhaps a little less pressure on other parts of the property to deal with lot size. So our net objective was to meet the population density target and to increase the green space, and also to provide a greater variety of living accommodation in the development. Some things I find interesting about this concept is that except for the proposed condo building, we think that the rest of the site could be developed well within existing zoning. Stephan mentioned that for many empty nesters looking for single floor living, the condo concept could offer a variety of units in a green, family-friendly surrounding. When we did the first visualization of the condo buildings, we actually had it drawn up with 2,000 square foot units, but we brought that back down to a range of probably 900 to 1,800 square feet. But an 1,800 square foot condo is quite a large condo these days. And one of the things that we saw as a problem with the number of townhouses and the shortage of parking around them was that the residents of the townhouses were really going to have some serious parking problems. And I think that one of the things about the condo proposal is that it will be completely serviced by underground parking, and it'll be more than ample parking, and it will all be out of sight. And I think that is one of the things that the planning department is anxious to do. We were told no more surface parking. And if you can visualize what that corner would look like, you would have quite a significant entry to southwest Oakville between the high school and the two condo developments across that corner. At SCORA, we look forward to continuing interest in this and the hope that we'll be able to work with the town and with CLC to make it an even better project. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for your information. Or questions? Only a well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, the next delegation.
Next delegation is Ms. Jill Devlin.
Ms. Devlin, welcome. Council looks forward to your information.
Thank you very much. I live at 17 Birch Hill Lane, which is one street east of Appleby College. And my main focus of what I'm going to talk about as a resident of the area is green space and parkland. I've only lived in Oakville for 5 years, but like many people, I often walk around the trails of Appleby College. My kids play on the playing fields. I used to walk often through the St. Thomas Aquinas grounds, playing fields. And I think that one of the things that's difficult for the residents is that even though these sorts of green experiences are a privilege, they're not a right. You know, Appleby College is an independent school. St. Thomas Aquinas is not owned by the town or the residents, but people get used to a certain amount of green space, place to kick a ball around, throw a ball, run around with your kids. And even though that's not our right, it is a privilege, and people get used to things. So I think that a lot of the residents are finding it difficult since Thomas Aquinas built the beautiful stadium, which is wonderful, but it's now fenced in. You can't go and use it unless you're a student or a guest of the school. The second playing field was turned into a parking lot. Again, I'm sure it was needed. I'm not trying to be critical of the school board, but change is inevitable, but people find it difficult. There's a lot less green space. I've never been physically on the D&D lands, but I drive by them all the time, and it's always struck me that it's a big, beautiful property. There used to be about 75, 80 homes on it, but even though I've never walked on the property, you could tell there was a big park in the middle, basketball courts, whatever. It was a sense of a lot of green space, parkland, family space in the middle of that property. Again, it's not my right to go on that land, but it is a sense in the area as you drive up Dorval and along Rebecca. There was always, to me, a sense of calm and green space, family space, what I would think of as green. So I think that one thing that I think would be fantastic is if, as a special project, the town of Oakville and CLC could do something really unique, which is to try to provide more than the minimum amount of parkland. I know that my understanding is the province requires 5% of a new development to be parkland, and CLC is generous because they're saying 6.5, and that's wonderful. I'm not being critical, but I'm proud now to live in Oakville and we're trying to be the most livable town in, I don't know if it's Ontario or Canada. I think of it as Canada, but I think it would be a very unique opportunity if the town of Oakville and CLC could do something like provide much more than the 5%, more like 10%. So that when you look at that drawing, and there's 2 other drawings as well, what we're trying to encourage is more than the minimum amount, more than the 6.5, go for more like 9 or 10%. And wouldn't that be a great thing if we could do that and achieve the provincial intensification that we're not balking at? We know things have to change. You can't have 80 houses there anymore, but we'd like the intensification to be more on the hard edges of Dorval and Rebecca, and keep more of that open, calm feeling. And even when you look at the SCORA designs compared to the CLC, it's just more of a feeling of open green space, places for people to enjoy outdoors. There are two other, I'm not sure if I'll be able to figure this out on the computer, but SCORA did up 3 different options. The L-shaped condominium buildings on the corner was one option. Then this is just a different drawing, 2 separate buildings. I'm assuming this would be more expensive to build because the parking lots, underground parking would be separate for each building, which would be more expensive, I assume. And the third option, I'm assuming you could have 1 underground parking between the 2 buildings with an entrance at the top and at the bottom. We personally like the L shape because it's such a nice wow factor on the corner, mirroring the Van Dyke on the southeast and the high school, which is so beautiful on the south. So I think that's it. Green is good.
Thank you very much for your information. Thank you. Madam Clerk, the next.
Yes, we have Mr. Lansdown also listed for this item.
Mr. Lansdown.